All right, everyone. Hopefully, we're live enough that I can actually um, see. I'm going to check real quick before I actually get into this. Um, so, two things um, before I get into what I'm doing today and why I'm on my banner image, which I've only done once before. Um, some of you might get mad at this, uh, because you're used to seeing me game. And that's great. That's wonderful. I'm glad that you enjoy what I do. And welcome if you haven't seen. Let me go to my creator channel thing. I really wish they could streamline this a little bit more. Um, it's not PAX Day. Let me edit that. Oh, my. So, here's what it is, okay? I say this, I'm switching this on to the mature audiences only arc. And we're not because I'm gonna swear or anything, because I try not to swear. You guys know me, I try not to swear. Um, I am going to do this in such a way that it is tactful and such, but this is a mature audiences only episode because some of the things I might get into, your kids may not want to see if you're a parent. Um, and some of the people I game with, if they happen to watch this episode, especially on Kick, because after a certain point, if we broach certain topics, I intend on let me make sure that I do this properly. Um, because I'm trying to make sure that both parties are uploading first. Sorry, before I go into talking about some of these things. Got this one already. Mm. Now, firstly, I am realizing that my video for No Man's Sky number 2 is about to go live. If you want to go ahead and watch that, you're welcome to do so. Tune out because this is just going to be a chatting stream while I'm trying to do other things. I'm trying to make sure that um, content continues to flow through my YouTube channel so that other people can find me. That being said, depending on how things are, some people might not want to game with me anymore after I say some of the things that I'm about to say. Um, but it needs to be said, okay? Because I'm kind of tired of people acting like some of the things that are said. Um, if we get into these topics, which we will get into them at some point, maybe not today. It might be tomorrow, it might be the next day, it might be 2 months down the road, but we will get into them. Um, but today, I think mostly we're going to talk about why I have the title that I have and the story behind the podcast because I gotta be honest, this is a reboot. And this reboot is basically um, let me make sure that I've got my other title fixed. Yeah, that's not right. Let me And basically, what's going to happen is after I'm done with this, the bits that are on YouTube will stay on the live. And it's basically going to be a podcast. Um, and my title is going to be what the main title is about. And I'm going to be broadcasting it to Kick and we may talk about other stuff. I'm going to be listening to stuff in the background all the time because I can't just stand to hear myself talk about this sort of stuff. And sometimes I run out of things to talk about, so it's going in the background. And I just want to talk and make my views heard, and sometimes when you're just gaming, that's difficult to do. And it's called Fish in My Pond because there was a day that, personally, let me tell you the truth, um, I got in trouble at work at Bernie's Home Repair, and I was told that I said some stuff, and it was some stuff that was personal viewpoints, and it was concerning marriage and the way marriage was supposed to be, and the way that our school system had gone. Um, and the fact that not really even commenting on the behavior of people, but the fact that some of the literature in public schools was now inappropriate for children. And that I, as a father, would not necessarily like, and I'm not a father yet. I don't have family of my own. I hope to one of these days, but as a hypothetical father, as someone who hopes to be a father one day, I don't necessarily want my children, future children, whoever they turn out to be, reading certain things at that age. I just don't. I'm like I said, I'm not a dad. I hope to be a dad. And as someone who hopes to be a dad, one day I hope to raise my kids my way. They may not turn out the way that I want them to go long term, but I want to teach them right from wrong. I want to teach them my views, not somebody else's views. And I don't want to have to stand idly by while somebody tells them that a certain behavior is okay when I don't necessarily think it is. I want the teacher to have to clear their life, their teaching plan with me. Yes, I'm saying I'm the boss of my own house in the future. Currently, I live with my folks, so my folks are kind of the boss at the moment because I can't afford to move out. But the second I move out, see, they're not going to come in to my house and tell me how to raise my kids. They're just not going to do it. And if they try, they're going to have a rude awakening. Now, am I saying I won't take my parents' advice? Of course I'm going to take my parents' advice because you do. But you add weight to that advice, you don't necessarily follow that advice all the time. Because there are things that my parents taught me that I found out were not biblical. And they're Bible believing Christians, or they try to be, you know. It's just like anything else. If you're a Christian, you go by the scripture. You do what you feel is right. You do what the Spirit leads you to do, and you do the best you can. But in the process of sharing these beliefs, by the way, we were not upset with one another in these beliefs, and nobody was upset with one another in sharing these beliefs. But hang on, I will be right back. Arrived, and the person delivering it was letting me know. So I'm gonna eat in the background, and I apologize if that offends y'all, but it is what it is, and we gotta deal with it. Um, Now, here is what happened concerning me and my friend, which doing all right. Mhm. Thank you. You might have been able to hear him in the background. If that is the case, I will edit that out. Anyway, um, me and my friend, we got through talking, and keep in mind I was on my lunch break, and my supervisor at the time, who is now thankfully no longer my supervisor, he has transferred to a different department. Um, and I barely have to deal with him. Found out some things about him that I'm not going to share, but I found it kind of funny when I did. Because, am I even online now? Let me check. So, I found it kind of funny because he got onto me for this, but if I had known then what I had known now and had the proof, he'd have been fired. Because it was extremely hypocritical. Anyway, this gentleman says, could you please clock in? I need to talk with you for a second. Keep in mind, this is 30 minutes into an hour lunch break. And I told him, I said, I still have 30 minutes. He's like, doesn't matter. I need you to clock in. Number one, that is illegal. Don't do it. Don't, if somebody asks you that, say that is illegal. That is your lunch break. It is your lunch break. And don't do it. That's another thing. The that we'll get into in this. The business will try everything they can to take advantage. But this person was about to try to go home, and so wanted to rail into me before he went home. Wanted to take care of this and write me up before he went home because he didn't like what I said. Don't know why. He was supposed to be a conservative sort of person himself. But again, this conversation between me and the friend was supposed to be on my off time and on my own time, not in the situation of while we're working or while we're on the clock. But the way they got around it, I'm fixing to tell you now. He comes in, so I clock in. Again, shouldn't have done it. Should have said, hey, technically that's illegal, but I didn't know that at the time. But nevertheless, I clock in and he says, listen, about what you just said in the break room. I said, number one, it was a private conversation. You really don't have the right to write me up over this because it wasn't meant for you to hear. But they have, and most businesses have this, they call it the open door policy. And they get by with it because they tell you, oh, it's for your safety. That way you can come in anytime you'd like and talk with us about whatever, like they're counselors. You got to understand, your bosses, your managers, as much as I hate to say it because I like to be friends with everybody, I like to be kind to everybody. They're not meant to be your friends. They're meant to oversee the business. They're meant to run the business, make sure it's doing like it should. And they're meant to make the money, basically, is what they're meant to do. Now, I have to admit, some of these managers at Bernie's Home Repair were not good at that either. Some people will say, what do you mean by that? I mean they weren't good at it. Because I found out some things that they were doing with the money that I do not like, and that's part of the reason I'm so in such a hurry to stream and make money from streaming and going on YouTube and Kick and doing these things because I want to get out of Bernie's Home Repair. And I've tried the traditional ways of just pound the pavement and find another job and apply for work other places. That has not worked for me. I want it to work for me, but it hasn't worked for me. So I'm trying every other thing that I can to make sure that the job is done. I'm still applying for other places, don't get me wrong. Um, and I don't mean to upset the good people at Bernie's Home Repair because they've been good to me overall. I don't want to act like they haven't because they have. Actually, you know what? I'm going to quit cleaning and eat because I'm trying to clean in the background and I'm too hungry. Um, but regardless, you need to understand I'm trying to get out of it. That's part of the reason I'm doing what I'm doing. Um, and hopefully some enough of y'all find people who see me live or see some of my posts, they will subscribe. Anyway, he said this is not the appropriate topic for work. And I said, Excuse me, but where am I supposed to talk about that at?" And one of the things he said was the internet. I said, "You don't understand the internet at all, do you? There are companies that are filtering free speech right now. Nobody is really giving free speech a chance, a real chance." And he's like, "Oh, the companies have a right to do exactly that." I said, "Excuse me, you're saying that companies have a right to do that, and yet you're telling me the only place for free speech is the internet?" And don't get me wrong, now there are a ton of free speech companies that really do well. Kick is one of them, and I'm pleased to be on it, and I'm glad that I can say goofy things about weather machines and goofy things like that and ask weird questions. That's a wonderful thing. But back in those days, this is back in, gosh, 2012. No, no, it would have had to have been 2015, 2016. So, um, maybe even 2017. Trump either was in office or was still in office or had just gotten in. Um, by the way, we'll get into more about Trump and places, people that don't like him and all this kind of stuff. That's going to be part of the work culture discussion today. And it's going to go biblical as well. Um, it's going to be biblical as well. We're going to talk biblically and we're going to get all into all kinds of stuff, scriptural things and politics in this podcast, okay? So just to let you know, it's going to cover a broad range of topics throughout all the episodes. Um, where did it go? Sorry, I was trying to find some stuff on my desk. Going there. Um, anyway, back to what we were saying. He and I went around for 30 minutes and tried to. He tried to convince me. I still am not convinced that they were being fair, but I'm also seeing now more and more that the problem is not just Bernie's Home Repair, the problem is the corporate culture overall and the way corporate culture is. Um, I appreciate opportunities given, don't get me wrong, but I'm understanding more and more that the way work works needs to change. And what I mean by that is simply put this. Um, in Bible days, okay, people did work. They worked hard. But there were all kinds of bylaws as to when you worked and when you didn't. You didn't work on the Sabbath. Okay, that would be to most people Sunday nowadays, right? Some people still work, still use Saturday. And some people have actually told me that, hey, the Sabbath is Saturday, but they would go to temple on this day in early Christendom. So it's both and. And you should really have both of them off. It should be a 5-day work week. I don't know. I think there needs to be a conversation about that. Forgive me for eating, but I gotta eat. Anyway, there does need to be a conversation about that. I'm not saying don't work. I'm saying there's a difference between work and from a biblical standard and work from what we've made it mean. Number one, in Bible times, many people worked for themselves. They didn't work for somebody else. Now, the thing about it is, if you got into debt, yeah, there was a different system of slavery back then, and slavery back then, unless you were a prisoner of war or something, is not the same as slavery now. You you worked for them for a set amount of time, and it was agreed upon. And after that amount of time, you went out and you were free, or you could choose to stay in the household if you'd like. Because sometimes people married and had kids and that kind of stuff. And there was a system of laws, and we can go into it at some point about when it came to how exactly that worked. Um, because it's complicated. And that's a whole nother topic, and so we can get into that another time. But the point is, it was different. It was straight up different. And it wasn't one of those things you were supposed to work until you died. If that were the case, I wouldn't be saying anything. But you are supposed to have some level of freedom. You are supposed to have, as a human being, some level of timing to do what you wish with your life. Like, I should be able to talk to my one or two viewers on here, my 7 followers on here. I should be able to do that on a regular basis. And I should be able to play video games if I want, which right now I could, but I'd be burning the day away. I'm just mainly talking like this to point out some stuff to you guys and talk to you guys about basically politics, religion, and all that stuff you're not normally supposed to talk about, which I think we should. I really do. Anyway, as I was saying, I talked to the supervisor at the time, and he wrote me up anyway. He had me sign the paper. I bit the bullet and signed it, and next thing you know, I have a write up at Bernie's Home Repair, and all for expressing a religious opinion. Um, and look, I will say it loud and proud. I do not care if somebody else wants to live a little bit differently. I'll talk with them. I'll interact with them. I'll love them. You know, the with the agape love that is respectful and that's, hey, come here, give me a big old hug. You need something? All right, I'll give it to you, no problem. You want a pen? I'll give you a pen. You want some food? I'll give you some food. You want some groceries? I'll give you some groceries. I really do not care. It's just money. It's just stuff. It's just things. But the second you have to tell me that doing those things for you means that I have to endorse your behavior, no. I'm sorry, boo boo. That don't work. um, but even if I did have hatred or vitriol for somebody, which I don't, I've worked with several people who I disagree with on a regular basis. Um, and they're good, solid workers. And some of them I've called friends, been proud to call friends. I've worked with and played video games with Deck on a regular basis. And we disagree on a lot. Like, and sometimes I'll vehemently disagree with him and I'll push back. And sometimes I'll say, huh, interesting, and just let him talk. Because it is interesting to hear some of the beliefs that come out of people's mouths. Me and a friend, a new friend, were talking last night about conspiracies and stuff, and he really disagreed with me on some of that. And I'll get into that at a later date, or maybe even later in this episode. I really don't know. Um, but regardless, that experience after I was done, I was talking to a coworker about the incident in private because that person wasn't there that particular day. And I said, "What do you want me? What should I do about this?" He's like, "Well, you have freedom of speech." And this is a guy, I call him um Ronald because that's basically, I call him Ronald Hamilton because that's his initials, but that is not his name, and Hamilton just kind of suits him. So Hamilton says, I'm going to call him Hamilton for the rest of this because saying Ronald Hamilton or Ronald sounds a little bit odd. So I'm just going to call him Hamilton. And I say, Hamilton, now you got to tell me, what should I do about this? And he said, and Hamilton tells me, he says, here's what you got to do. I know you want your freedom of speech, and that's wonderful, but you can't just go around blabbing. You got to fish in your pond. You got to fish in your pond. And I said, what do you mean fish in your pond? He's like, you have an area right now. Your area is your house. Your area is your whatever. And of course, I'm like, number one, I'm thinking back to some of the times he's mouthed off to me and said things that I didn't like. And I tried to push back, and he's like, bah. He was very into the whole climate change narrative, and I'm not. I don't believe that. Don't get me wrong, I believe in climate change. I believe that climate changes, but I do not believe that the climate is going to cause the earth to blow up in 12 years. I mean, here's the big deal about people, they lie. They straight up lie. And especially when money is involved. If a person, I don't care how much authority they have to their name. If a person is getting a bunch of money, I don't care how many DRs you put by their name, how many degrees they've worked to earn, they have a tendency to be corrupt. I especially if they get to the point where they have a lot of power. They have a tendency to be corrupt. Now, I'm not saying there aren't some that are altruistic because I believe Donald Trump's one of them. We'll get into that. We'll get into that. But when I'm talking about when they go through these institutions that tell you it's all about you, it's all about how much you can learn, all about how much you can do for yourself, all about how successful you can be. Not talking about churches, not talking about, I'm talking about the colleges that encourage you to get more and more degrees and laud you and say how great you are and pat you on the back every time you get a new one. When half of them, you put somebody in that job and teach them how to do it, they can do it within a week, maybe. I and I've had this experience myself. I'm not I don't have a doctorate or anything, but I went for school to medical billing and coding. I went to school for medical billing and coding, and in 2 days, I'm like, "I got this under control. Y'all just put me to the medical billing and coding right now, and I can get it done. What am I doing here? Why am I paying all this money?" And, don't get me wrong, I learned a few things that I could have done wrong had I not gone through the school, but most of what they were teaching me, I figured out how to do. I can teach you in 2 seconds how to bill and code if we've got a book beside me, and all I gotta do is open the book and show you, here's where you go, here's the index, you gotta look up here first, find the ailment and the body part. Is it LT? Is it RT? Okay. Now here's the treatment book. You look it up in the index. If it's under medical office management, you look in the medical office management part of the index and you're done. You That's all it takes. And yet I had to pay $100. Actually, no, that's just for the book. I had to pay like several $100 for each of the classes, each round of classes that they were having me do. Basically, what I'm saying is college is a scam, guys. Absolute scam. It's only required because we make it be. Half the jobs they put us in could be taught in no time. Um. Anyway, so I asked Hamilton. I say, Hamilton, what have you? What do I do? You're saying that I gotta fish in my pond. Okay, how do I fish in my pond when there is no pond for me? He's like, you got your house, and I'm like, that's the problem. Nobody comes to my house. I don't have anybody that comes to my house to talk to me. You're telling me to fish in my pond, and he's like, but at work, people force their opinions down my throat all the time. And look, I'm all for hearing other people's opinions, but I'm talking they're rude about it. Okay, let me share with you another example to illustrate. Okay, and I can share the full details of this story because it is available to do so without actually being fired at the moment. I was standing at the door at Bernie's Home Repair. This guy comes in with a Hillary Clinton hat, and he starts sharing how Hillary Clinton is the greatest thing since sliced bread and doesn't miss a beat. How great it is that she's so experienced and whatnot. Number one, at that point, I'd found out some things about the Clintons that I'm not exactly fond of. I'm from a small town in Arkansas, and Bill used to be the governor, and even from the get go, there was some shady stuff that happened. And everybody's heard about the Clinton body count and how there's a lot of people that seem to disappear when they criticize the Clintons, especially if they're close to them. Now, thankfully, that era is pretty much over because honestly, if you go looking at the Clintons now, they're downhill. They're downhill. They're not gonna be in politics again anytime soon, I don't think. And I'd be very surprised if they live past the next 2 years. I guarantee you in the next 2 years they're both gone. Um and I'm don't get me wrong, I'm not happy about that. I don't wish death on anyone. But when you do some of the stuff that the Clintons have done and some of the other politicians have done, it comes back around on you. It takes a toll on your body. Uh, you don't. That's why there are no stones in glass houses, because things tend to break. So, as it stands now, um, I told him the gentleman that I was talking to at the door. I said because keep in mind he went on for good 5, 10, 15 minutes about how great Hillary Clinton was and gushed. I said, this woman has done X, Y, Z, A, B, C, all kinds of different stuff that she still has yet to answer for. Do you really, after all this woman has done, want her in office? And keep in mind, this was during the first election of Donald J. Trump. Hopefully, we have another with him in office because I really like him. Um, again, we'll get into that a little bit more. I because that's neither here nor there. But I want you to note that throughout this video, when I'll mention a political candidate, I will not wish anybody dead. Okay, this is important. I want you to know throughout this video, I've never wished anybody dead. I will not. You will never hear that out of my lips. I will criticize. I will get angry. But I'm not going to ever wish anybody dead. But that is required for the next section that I'm going to go into. This man turned around after I had my tirade for like 2 minutes after he had gushed over Hillary Clinton for 15 minutes at most, maybe 5, maybe 10. And he said, "Oh, that's just fake news. Everybody thinks Trump invented fake news? No, it was Hillary Clinton supporters when they would bring up all the things that the Clintons had done. They would be the ones saying fake news, and that's where that came from. That's where that term came from. You can actually look back in the 2016 election and before, you'll see a lot of left wing people using fake news, but you have to dig back. And the problem is, we as humans, we have the memory of a goldfish. And it's partially due to all of the digital media that we use and the fact that we don't journal anymore, the fact that we don't collect information and put them in books. I'm getting into that myself. Uh, if you'd like, as part of the fish in my pond episodes, I can talk more about my journaling techniques and how they're evolving and things like that over time. I think that would be an interesting episode. We'll see. Um, but again, we're looking mainly at the moment at talking about why this series is going to be called this series. And it's going to be in addition to the gaming. Don't get me wrong. I'll still be gaming. Uh, some of the people that talk to me, that game with me, may not want to game with me anymore. Uh, and if they don't want to, that's their decision, that's their choice. But um, I will be gaming. This is just going to be something that I do while I don't have anything else to do, while people are backing away from the computer. Like right now. Let me take a look see. Right now, it looks as though my friends are not on, except for my friend that I was with last night, that I was talking with, that I was discussing, and Latrain is his name. Um, anyway, and we'll get into that too at some point. Um, this is mainly just kind of discussing all kinds of weird stuff. Um, anyway, he said, "You got a fish in your pond." And he said, "The problem is, some people do have a bigger pond than others. You've got to make sure that your pond grows. And right now, you've got a small pond, but maybe later you'll have a slightly bigger pond." And he was right in a way. I had a bigger I have a bigger pond now than I did back then. There are at least 15 people that like seeing what I do. No, 17 people now in total. If you count my YouTube channel and my um Kick in total. Let me look at that. Um, mine. Yeah, that's definitely still 10 subscribers on YouTube. By the way, if you're not subscribed to me on YouTube, you can do that. Just like if you're n- subscribed on YouTube and you're not following me on Kick, well, you can do that. And if you want to follow me on Twitch, I'm not as active there because I'm mainly focusing on what's giving me the biggest audience at the moment. Um, and share me out with your friends. I hope I'm worthy of the thoughts that I'm speaking. Um, sorry, I'm checking on some stuff in the background. Just to let you know the way things are going at the moment. Um, I may have to back out or be a little more silent in my stream because I'm trying to do some tech stuff. Um, basically, I'm getting into older tech and alt tech, taking a break from the work story at the moment. Because I like some of the things that used to be a thing that are no longer a thing. I'm experimenting with, okay, for those of you who don't know, the Zune. Microsoft's Zune. Um, don't get me wrong. I don't think it's perfect. I don't think there's anything on this earth that's perfect. But I preferred the Zune to the iPod because the iPod had a smaller screen and smaller buttons, and it wasn't as durable because it would break. Every time you would drop it, it would break. However, it was discontinued in 2006, I believe, and there is a group of lovely people who are bringing that stuff back to life like crazy. They are hacking the software so that it works again. Um, that being said, is it perfect? Absolutely not. Some of the things that you can do on the Zune software you can no longer do. Like, okay, I'll pull it up here to talk about it. It used to have internet support. It no longer does. Um, it, but no tricky updates because there's no updates to be had. It's as far updated as it's ever going to be. You can't sign in or create a new account because there is no accounts to make because there's no internet servers. You also cannot find any podcasts. So it's mainly to store photos, store videos, and store music. and there's some people that have hacked it to do a couple other things. Um, I have purchased one, and I have an old one that I'm still trying to get the firmware off. Um, it was a freak accident that I managed to get the one that I ordered the firmware off. Uh, Basically, there was this whole thing with the firmware that actually wasn't a firmware issue. Apparently, it was a driver issue. Um, but basically, I'm trying to take all my music from Pandora, buy them on CD, and use the Zune to store the ripped files from that CD because I do not like, for example, I don't necessarily like that the phone is the only place you can listen to music now. And like the apps are the only place you could like I can pull up Pandora, right? I've got a premium subscription to Pandora. I really do. I've got a premium subscription to Pandora and I love it. Don't get me wrong. I like that I can have all of my podcasts and my music right there, you know, to give you an idea as to what I listen to. I actually listen to a lot of praise and worship, but I also listen to a lot of old school rock and roll, country, some of it. I love parodies, I love comedy, and it's great. Um, but there's one thing I don't love about Pandora, okay? And it's the same thing I don't like about Spotify and what used to be Slacker and stuff like that. Let me see, what does it say that okay, it's this this is actually a radio station based on an artist. I don't think I actually did that though. Um, that's another thing. It's because my phone is touchscreen, it randomly starts stations and things without my knowledge or without my consent. Um, Doesn't matter if I have my screen locked or not. Sometimes it just opens. Because the way it's done now, it's unlocked by face or by fingerprint. So if you're pressing the wrong way, it just, you know. And I enjoy the Pandora app. Don't get me wrong. I don't like though that everything is internet based. It used to be, MP3s and stuff, they were the way to go, but you could buy them and they were yours and you could do what you wanted with those MP3s, with those things. And I am gonna have to step away for a minute, guys. I apologize. I got a notification some time ago that my dad needed a package from the mailbox and I'm supposed to go get it. So I'm gonna go get it. I'll be back in 2 shakes. Y'all have a good one. And I'm gonna stay live, but I'm just gonna back away for a few seconds. So subscribe and y'all can hopefully tell that I'm still live, that I'm doing things. But if I try to go outside, it'll go off anyway. So I'm just gonna back away. Where's that other shoe? Actually, while I'm at it, I'll just continue my storytelling as to that. Anyway, when Hamilton said, "You got a fish in your pond," the wheels started turning. And I started to think of podcasting as an alternative. And I did a little research. I did some research um with some websites and whatnot, and I said podcasting might be my way to actually say my piece and have my voice heard and hear have people hear what I gotta say, even if they don't agree with me. And by the way, I have not gotten some trolling um from it. I used to do blogging every once in a while. But blogging has changed to the point where now it's pretty much impossible to do. Um, that's what we try to do as humans. For some reason, we take what's simple and we make it more complicated. I went to the old stopping ground of Blogspot, which I used to go to, and I actually found it impossible to work with. It used to be you picked your colors. I remember because I had a lot of neon green in one of mine, and I had some peaceful meditations in one of mine. I had two blogs that I ran, um, maybe three. And don't get me wrong, I enjoyed running them, but I fell out of practice with them. And so when the new changes came along, I didn't get to adapt slowly like everybody else. And now it's pretty much dead, or it's so complicated you can't use it anymore. So I just fell out of practice with it. And that's okay. Sometimes you fall out of practice with stuff and that kind of thing. But I thought I'd get back into that first, and I didn't manage to do that. It was very difficult. So I just said, okay, forget that then. And he said, um, I said, what else can I do? And I heard about this place called SoundCloud, and you still might be able to find my podcast, a few episodes of it. Um, I don't think so. It goes by the same name of Fish in My Pond. If somebody wants to look, I'm sure they might be able to find a couple. But I lost. I didn't do that really very much because it was inconvenient. I had to of course, back then I didn't have the PC knowledge that I do now. And what I know now is still a small fraction of what there's out there to know. I'm learning, guys. But I didn't really know exactly how to go about podcasting and stuff because number one, you don't really have a lot. If you don't have a lot of people on a podcast, it's not easy to kind of implement. You know, I I want to have guests on my show. Really, I do. Um, Fish in My Pond, which it's still relatively new in regards to this, but I have had dreams of having it bigger and uploading more of the Fish in My Pond episodes back when I started doing it, and also having guests every once in a while that might want to talk about things, be it religion, politics, or just whatever. And I'll talk to anybody as long as they're being respectful about it. Um, but I'm not the biggest podcaster in the world. I know you gotta start somewhere. You gotta start somewhere. You really do. And I had to figure out how I'm going to go about doing this sort of stuff on a regular basis because it's very difficult. As I've shared with you guys before on my gaming videos and previous episodes of whatever I did, with not a set schedule. Like, I have pictured doing Fish in My Pond at least once a week on top of the gaming videos. Now that I've figured out more how to do it, this is the first inaugural episode, but I have pictured this kind of stuff in my head and how it would work. I would go about making sure that this was done properly at least once a week. I'd like to do it at least 3 times a week, but without actually having the ability to do so. Like, without actually being able to do this on a regular basis, having a set schedule, I can't. Not at this stage. For example, okay, I wanted to start this a little earlier today. Number one, I was wiped out because I was trying to do a bunch of stuff last night. So I wound up going to bed early and getting up late because of the way things are. And you know how sometimes if you don't know a routine very well, if you suddenly change your routine, even if it's a bad routine to a good routine, you end up in a sticky situation, a sticky wicket, if you will. Um, because, and I'm gonna be completely sorry. I'm just trying to get some stuff done in the background again. The Zoom thing. Um, I lost my train of thought. I'll just go back to the other stories that I've gone into. Um, finally, the other day, okay, and after this, I'll back out a little bit and go down the rabbit hole and try to get the package and stuff that I need to get. There was a gentleman yesterday, actually 2 days ago. I was cashiering at Bernie's Home Repair, and he looked like he was having a stressful day, right? So, me being the nice guy that I am, I try to lighten his mood with a joke. I may have told it on here. And I said, how do you make one disappear? And he said, well, you make sure that the person's got a good shot, and you make sure that it's Trump, and you make sure that you don't miss. And turned an innocent dad joke, which my answer was add a G and it's gone. That's my joke. That's the joke I was going to tell him. How do you make one disappear? Add a G and it's gone. That's it. And I told him that was the wrong answer, and he said, "It's a shame we can't joke about stuff like that right now." And I said, "Honestly, I don't care what you joke about." And I really wanted to tell him, "Hey, look, you guys get to joke about whatever you want. It's us that are shut down. It's the right wingers that are shut down. Somebody can run Trump into the ground and nobody cares. But the second somebody stands up for him and says, hey, he's doing good for this country, and say what you will about Donald J. Trump, I think he's the best president I've ever seen in my lifetime. Now, I'm not saying there's not better in the past. I'm sure George Washington was wonderful. I'm sure Abraham Lincoln was wonderful. I believe that um, Ronald Reagan was a good president, according to what I've studied in history. Um, and I'm sure there have been other presidents that have done great things in history. I'm saying I believe personally Donald Trump is the best that I have seen in mine. Uh, and I will not go back on that. I believe it with my whole heart. I believe it with my whole being. Um, you can have a discussion about it in the comments below if you'd like. All I know is Me personally, when Donald Trump was in office at a part-time salary, I was looking for places to rent because I could actually afford it on a part-time salary. The second he left office and Joe Biden started doing whatever he was doing, I suddenly couldn't afford it, even on a full-time salary, which um, now I went from full-time to part-time at the beginning of 2023. I thought I might be able to afford it at a full-time salary. It's still not enough. And I am paid top dollar for my area. Like, literally, if you look around at jobs in my area, it is the highest paying place in the city. I won't go into what city I live in. Some of you may have heard it briefly on the randomness stream that I had that is now gone. Um, it will not be coming back because I do not want to mention my state. Or I'll mention my state, but I do not want to mention my town, and I do not want to mention my the real name of my workplace. There's a reason I call it Bernie's Home Repair, and that is because good people, work there. Good people. That is their livelihood. It's not really my fault that corporate and some of the managers are being horses behinds. Let's put it that way. I wish things would change, but I'm realizing that more and more things aren't changing. And that is why I'm streaming. That is why I've got this talk show. That is why. And they know that I'm streaming. They know that I do this kind of stuff in my off time. They know that I do games. This is the first time that I'm doing this. And I, as a result, I'm not going to mention real names. I'm going to try not to mention real names. I'm not mentioning company names. I just want to make sure. Oh, that's interesting. That's that's been delivered too. So I have two packages to get and receive. Um, but yeah, that's why I am not mentioning real names. Is I do not want to be let go before it's my time to go and myself. And it's 103 at the moment, so I am going to end this stream, I think, because I've said all I need to say. I'm not going to apologize for any of the things said in this stream to anyone, and I will be basically leaving it up for everybody to see and hear, and I will be talking to you guys later. I just want to make sure that people understand I'm not trying to upset anybody by what I'm saying, but these are my opinions. Um, Let me get into some of the biblical things before I go. Biblically speaking, when somebody has a Hang on. Portable devices. Let's see. Uh, well, I'll have to talk later. Uh, the biblical way, okay? You actually go back and look. David played on his lyre while he was watching the sheep. He was on his own, okay? And I get back in those days, inappropriate music wasn't necessarily as much of a thing, okay? And that's part of it. That's part of the whole diatribe. But it's kind of sad that if you know that me as an employee doesn't do inappropriate music, right? I don't do that. I make sure that when I play music, it is work safe at work. And so it is kind of silly that I, as a worker, cannot play work safe music at work because somebody might choose, all right, to play uh, at work music that would be inappropriate for work. You punish the people who are doing bad things, not the people who are doing good things. And this is bad with scheduling as well because a common practice right now in certain circles is if somebody does a good job working, instead of paying them more for working less because they do a good job when they work them more and tire them out. I don't like that behavior. I think if you do a really good job and you're real effective and you help the company run, you ought to get rewarded with more vacation time than somebody else, more pay than somebody else, more benefits than somebody else. Um, why? Because if you overwork your good workers because they work good, then they tire out. And why is that why do I say that? Why is that a thing? Because I'm experiencing this now, personally. I I have been on the receiving end of every holiday I've got to work. Every weekend that I don't request myself, I have to work. And I will tell you this, this is another pet peeve, although this isn't just a work pet peeve, this is a family pet peeve. Um, I have been asked on several occasions to request off for certain weekends when I've already requested off for another weekend, and asked if I could move things around because I'm doing things for me and they want to do things with me that are family stuff, and I understand wanting to do family stuff and making sure items are used and money's used effectively and that kind of thing. But when does family time and all this other free time that I'm having to spend give way to Jordan time or Bryce time or I'll have to cut that out in the VOD. Um, Bryce time. You know, I am not anti-family time. Don't get me wrong. I believe family is important. Family is the block of what we do as Americans. Founding block. But you have to have you time, personal time, yourself. And I believe absolutely that you're supposed to have personal time. And when I say personal time, I literally mean time that you get to do what you want to do. Let me explain this as well. Family is muy importante. Again, very important. But again, this weekend, or not this weekend, but today, or yesterday, last night, I was asked by some family, please clean up a little bit more. Which is part of the reason I'm talking to you now. Because while I'm doing this, I am cleaning, I am trying to do things, I'm trying to get things done. And that's great, that's wonderful, you know, you do need to get things done. But at the same time, I had things that I was planning to do. I was making plans. And all of a sudden, family comes in, I need you to clean this stuff up tomorrow. It should take you only an hour. Well, an hour turns into two, turns into three, because you get five other people calling you and 12 text messages and appointments pop up that you forgot about, and sooner or later your whole 2 days is gone. So I need people to understand that I need one day a week. The good Lord gets a day, I want a day. That's it. That's what it is. I want a day that I get to focus on what I want to do and not what somebody else wants me to do. Okay? That's my biggest pet peeve right now at the moment. is nobody wants to give me the time to actually do half the things that I feel like I need to do or feel like I want to do. For example, okay, I have the tech issue I'm working on, which I've been working on in the background, and to update it, they're saying to look at the drivers, which is right. I'm trying to figure out where this Zune is on my computer so I can update the driver. Do I add a driver, maybe? Well, that's not working. Um, I'll have to figure that out. Trying to do tech stuff in the background, guys. I apologize. Um, because I really want this figured out. I really want this done. I, but I feel like everybody needs personal time. They do. And that's part of the issue that I have and why I'm planning some of the things that I'm planning in the future and hopefully near future, but I can understand how it won't actually be near future if I don't hurry and figure out what to do about it, how to go about it. Um, but I am planning some things, and I do believe that absolutely I'm going to go about figuring out exactly how things are. It looks like I've only been streaming for 13 minutes. Why is that? Oh, well, I don't know. Um, but work told culture can be, I hate using this term. I hate using the term toxic, but that's the only place I can describe it. Because I'm not a fan of the way work culture has been designed now. I don't like that you can't share your opinions and beliefs with your coworkers without being called into the office and told, we don't do that here. And that's part of the reason Fish in My Pond and my streaming mannerisms came to be. It's the one place that I can actually share my belief systems. And last night, and I'll end with this, we ended up, sh- me and a new friend of mine, um, the Frigate Latrine. Ah, freight train. Very interesting. That must be what he's trying to do. Um, we talked about uh basically what amounts to demons and aliens and basically the whole conspiracy behind Area 51 and stuff. And I told him a story that I'd heard. It was about a guy who, and don't get me wrong, I'm not completely cuckoo crazy. I don't believe necessarily that I'm not one of these people that believes the earth is flat. Okay? I'm just not. There are things I don't necessarily believe that we didn't land on the moon. I don't believe in the idea that the moon landing was faked. Now, I'm open to the idea of having my mind changed. I've seen some programming and stuff that it was interesting to see. Um, and I do believe absolutely that there are things that science cannot explain. I But the story that I heard was I heard that they started Area 51, right? Because they found this um what they thought was an alien language. And they said it seems to be a ritual to communicate with beings beyond this world, basically inferring aliens, right? And this guy and his buddies started playing around with it and communicating with these aliens, and it gave them all kinds of technology and stuff. Some of that technology we use today, from what I've been told, right? From the story that I was told by other people. Do I believe that technology is evil? Heck no. It's how you use that technology and how you come up with that technology that matters. And what you do with it that matters. People can use a computer chip to build a bomb, or they could use it to build a self-watering garden that will feed millions of people. It's all in that the use of that technology and what you choose to do with it. However, on with the story. This guy goes on and he's taking these papers from the lab. I don't know if they knew about them or not. Being taken from the lab, they may not have, because you know how secret top secret information is. It gets put around, and you say they open it up and they start looking at it, and all of a sudden there's happens to be this witch that sits beside him, and she gets a little scared. She looks at that writing. She's like, "Where did you get that?" And he said, "It's an alien language that we found." And she's like, "Alien language? That's not an alien language. That's an occultic language used for spells and witchcraft and stuff. I would know. I'm a witch. I'm a white witch." And she says, "That there that you're holding in your hand is not something I would touch. I That is writing that is used in a ritual that is specifically meant to open a portal to hell. You need to get rid of that right now." And I don't know if they actually got rid of it or not. I just heard the story from somebody um who saw it on the internet, and I I saw some of the clips myself later, and I was like, wow. And I don't know if it's true. I kind of believe it because what's the easiest way to get humans to believe it? It's just have them say, "We're from another planet. We're from another place of existence, and we're here to help you. We know more than you do, and so listen. You know, that's the easiest way for a demon to really get a human to listen to them nowadays because they've heard all the other arguments that demons would make, the whole Faustian bargain thing, and most of us ain't having it. Now, there's a few that would have it, no problem. There's a few that would say, "Yeah, I'll take that," but those are the stupid ones. To go for the ones that are slightly smarter that know, hey, I ain't losing my soul to that for some temporary pleasures or anything like that. You have to go a little bit further down into it. You have to be a little bit smarter with your um, trickery when it comes to being a demon. Now, am I saying there aren't alien life forms or anything like that out there? I don't know. They may have their own Bible. They may have their own version of the gospel of Jesus Christ. They may have heard about it. They may have, you know, and if they have, great. You know, if they haven't, meh. And there also may be other forms of animal life out there. I'm not stupid. I'm fully aware that some of these planets may be colonizable. That would make things a lot easier, wouldn't it? You don't like somebody just move to a different planet. Uh Anyway, I'm gonna go for the day. Or go for the at least the afternoon. I've got a stuff to do. I've got a thing to manage, and I've got to make sure all this stuff is done. I may be back on here in a little bit, but I'm going to stop streaming for now because that's the way things are. And I will see you when I can. Hopefully, either tonight or tomorrow night. I will be uh working with a little bit of VR for you. Because I'll stream that and it'll be up. Until then, it will this will stay up, and you're free to watch that as you will. And have a great day. And remember, we may have different beliefs, we may have different opinions, but as long as you're willing to be respectful, you're welcome to fish in my pond. Have a great day. I'll see you next time.